Gladys Knight, the Empress of Soul, has been a voice of hope, love, and power for over 6 decades. From her early days performing with the Pips to standing alone on stage, her voice carried not just melody but emotion, the kind that touches hearts and lingers for a lifetime. Yet now, at 81, what has happened to Gladys Knight has left fans around the world both heartbroken and deeply moved. Her life has always been a mix of incredible highs and painful lows. She rose to fame in an era when the music industry was unkind to women, especially black women, but she never let that break her. Her voice was a weapon of grace, and her songs, from Midnight Train to Georgia to Neither One of Us, defined generations. But behind those shining performances was a woman quietly enduring heartbreak, loss, and the relentless toll of fame. Recently, fans have been worried. Gladys has made fewer public appearances, sparking rumors and questions. When she finally stepped back into the spotlight, the sight brought many to tears. Time had softened her, but her spirit, that unmistakable glow, still burned bright. What she revealed about her health, her purpose, and her plans for the rest of her life was both shocking and inspiring. Gladys Knight, not just the superstar, but the survivor. What happened to her at 81 will make you see her not as a legend on stage, but as a woman whose resilience and faith have kept her shining long after the spotlight dimmed. Long before she became a household name, Gladys Knight was a little girl from Atlanta, Georgia, whose voice carried a kind of magic that couldn't be taught. Born in 1944, she grew up in a family where music was as natural as breathing. By the time she was 8, she was already performing in church, stunning congregations with her soulful, mature tone. Her family quickly realized she was special, and soon after, Gladys Knight and the Pips were formed, a family act that would soon make history. The early years weren't easy. The group faced countless rejections, performing at local shows, small radio gigs, and community events just to be heard. But Gladys had something no one else did. A voice that could make joy sound deep and sorrow sound beautiful. When Motown Records finally took notice in the 1960s, everything changed. Songs like I Heard It Through the Grapevine and Friendship Train introduced the world to the raw emotional depth that would define Gladys Knight's career. Still, behind that powerful presence was a young woman struggling to find balance. Fame came fast, and with it came the pressures of an industry that often demanded perfection. Gladys later admitted that the early years were filled with exhaustion, loneliness, and the constant fight to be taken seriously. Motown was a male-dominated world, and she often had to push twice as hard to earn half the recognition. Yet through it all, she never lost her grace. Even as trends shifted and younger stars emerged, Gladys's authenticity kept her grounded. Her music wasn't about selling records. It was about telling the truth. Every note she sang carried the weight of real life, heartbreak, faith, forgiveness, and strength. That's why her songs resonated with so many people, especially women who saw their own struggles reflected in her lyrics. Her defining moment came with the release of Midnight Train to Georgia in 1973, a song that became not just her signature, but an anthem for anyone who's ever loved, lost, and dared to start again. It won her a Grammy and turned her into a global icon. But more than the fame, it gave her something she'd been searching for, validation that her pain and perseverance had meaning. By the late 1970s, Gladys Knight was unstoppable. Her voice filled concert halls, her albums topped charts, and her name became synonymous with class and power. Yet fame has a way of testing even the strongest souls. As her career reached new heights, her personal life quietly began to unravel. Failed marriages, betrayals, and the challenges of raising children while living on the road began to take their toll. She was the Empress of Soul to the world, but privately, she was a woman carrying the weight of too many battles. Still, Gladys found strength in faith. Her belief in God became her foundation, especially during the darkest moments. She often said that music was her ministry, her way of reaching hearts when words alone weren't enough. That faith would become the guiding light that helped her survive not only the music industry's chaos but the personal storms that were yet to come. As the decades passed, new artists emerged and musical trends evolved, but Gladys Knight's voice remained timeless. Even today, at 81, that same voice, though softer, still carries the warmth and honesty that made her a legend. And yet, behind the smile that fans adore, her journey has been filled with moments of unimaginable pain and reflection. What she faced in her later years would remind the world that even legends are not immune to heartbreak. As Gladys Knight's career soared throughout the 1970s and 80s, the applause seemed endless. Grammy Awards, sold-out concerts, and invitations to perform for presidents. To the outside world, she had everything: beauty, fame, and a voice that could move mountains. But behind that glittering image was a woman quietly falling apart. The very thing that made her a star, her drive, her perfectionism, also began to cost her deeply on a personal level. Her first marriage, to musician James Newman, had already ended painfully. They had 2 children together, but life on the road kept Gladys away from home more than she ever wanted. James struggled with addiction, and their love, once full of hope, slowly collapsed under the weight of fame and personal demons. Gladys later admitted in interviews that she often felt torn, guilty for chasing her dreams while her family needed her. "I was singing to millions," she once said, "but I was losing the ones I loved the most." Despite the heartbreak, she refused to give up. Gladys poured her emotions into her music, using the stage as therapy. Every performance became a confession, every lyric a piece of her soul. Fans saw the power in her voice, but few realized that many of her most emotional songs came from real pain. Tracks like Neither One of Us, Wants to Be the First to Say Goodbye, weren't just hits. They were reflections of her personal struggles with love and loss. As the years went by, Gladys remarried twice, but neither relationship brought lasting happiness. Her second husband, Barry Hankerson, was a record producer who helped shape her solo career, but the union was filled with turbulence and mistrust. Their separation was bitter, involving a painful custody battle over their son. It was another emotional wound that she carried quietly while maintaining her image as the unshakable Empress of Soul. By the 1980s, fame had started to feel like both a blessing and a curse. Gladys was adored by fans and respected by her peers, yet inside, she felt lonely and misunderstood. The industry that once celebrated her began to shift toward younger, flashier stars. While she never lost her artistry, the spotlight slowly dimmed. Record labels wanted trends, not timeless voices. Still, she continued to perform, relying on her faith and her loyal audience to keep her spirit alive. But one of the most shocking moments of her life came when she faced an addiction she never saw coming. Not to drugs or alcohol, but to gambling. During the 1980s, she found herself trapped in a cycle of casino visits and high-stakes bets that nearly destroyed her finances. It was a side of her life few people knew about until much later, when she opened up publicly about it. "I was trying to fill a void," she admitted. "The lights, the noise. It was a way to escape." The addiction lasted years, costing her millions and leaving her emotionally drained. But just like every other storm in her life, Gladys found her way out through faith and determination. With the help of prayer, counseling, and support from loved ones, she eventually overcame her gambling habit. Her journey of redemption became a powerful example of resilience, inspiring fans who were facing their own private battles. Even after all the losses, Gladys Knight continued to rise. She returned to the studio, recorded gospel albums, and even earned more Grammy Awards in the 1990s and 2000s. But as the applause roared on, she began to realize that no stage, no award, could ever replace the peace she longed for in her heart. It was about survival, forgiveness, and finding joy in the moments that mattered. But fate wasn't done testing her yet. In the years that followed, she would endure heartbreaks that would change her forever, reminding the world that even the strongest souls can break when faced with life's cruelest twists. By the time Gladys Knight reached her 60s, she had already lived several lifetimes, filled with triumphs, failures, and lessons learned the hard way. Yet, even as the applause continued and fans cheered her name, a quiet sadness began to surround her. The same woman who had lifted millions with her voice was now facing the most painful chapters of her personal life. One of the deepest wounds came from the loss of her family members, particularly her mother, Sarah Elizabeth, and her brother, Merrill Bubba Knight Jr., who had been her lifelong musical partner. The Pips weren't just her backup singers, they were her heart. Together, they'd built an empire from scratch, performing side by side for decades. When illness began to strike those closest to her, Gladys found herself stepping off stage not as a star, but as a grieving daughter and sister. Her mother's death hit her the hardest. Sarah Knight had always been her anchor, the woman who believed in her before anyone else. Losing her was like losing a piece of her soul. Gladys later said that no amount of fame could prepare her for that kind of pain. When she left, she shared softly in an interview, the world got quieter. Even the music sounded different. Around the same time, Gladys faced challenges with her own health. Although she kept her struggles private, rumors began circulating that she had been battling serious illnesses. For years, fans speculated about her dramatic weight loss and fatigue during performances. In 2015, she shocked the public by revealing she had survived stage 1 breast cancer, a diagnosis she had kept secret until she recovered. She credited her faith and early detection for saving her life, saying, "God wasn't done with me yet." But the emotional toll of her personal tragedies didn't stop there. In 2017, her son, Jimmy Newman Jr., passed away unexpectedly. Jimmy had long battled addiction, and though Gladys had fought tirelessly to help him find peace, his passing shattered her. She spoke candidly about the pain of losing a child, a grief no parent ever truly recovers from. "You think you've known sorrow," she said, "until you lose your child. Then you learn what heartbreak really is." Those who knew her said that after her son's death, Gladys changed. She became quieter, more reflective. Her concerts turned into something deeper, not just performances, but spiritual experiences. Fans noticed that she often spoke about heaven, forgiveness, and the fragility of life. It was as though every song had become a prayer, every lyric a message to the people she had lost. Through all this, her husband, William McDowell, whom she married in 2001, became her steady companion. He wasn't part of the entertainment world, and that's exactly what Gladys needed. Peace, not pressure. Together they moved to North Carolina, away from the spotlight. There she found solace in church, family, and community work. She often said that at this stage in her life, her purpose wasn't fame anymore, it was faith and giving back. Despite her attempts to find peace, the shadows of her past occasionally returned. The pain of broken marriages, lost friendships, and fading fame weighed on her at times. Still, Gladys refused to let tragedy define her. She would rise again just as she always had, this time not as a performer, but as a woman who had finally made peace with herself. Now at 81, Gladys Knight's story is one of unimaginable endurance. Her voice has grown softer, her pace slower, but her heart remains unshaken. The pain she's endured hasn't dimmed her. It has deepened her. Every line on her face tells a story. Every performance a reminder that beauty often grows from heartbreak. In her later years, Gladys Knight no longer chased fame or chart-topping hits. She sought meaning. Decades of performing had taken her across the world, from royal stages to intimate church halls, but her greatest audience had always been those who listened with their hearts. Now at 81, she stands as one of the last living icons of a golden era, a bridge between the soul of the past and the lessons of today. Yet behind the elegance and strength, her story remains one of quiet endurance, faith, and gratitude. After enduring the heartbreak of losing her mother and son, Gladys found purpose in helping others heal. She became deeply involved in charity work and faith-based outreach, mentoring young artists and supporting addiction recovery programs, causes close to her heart. Her experiences with loss had shown her the importance of compassion, and she often said that the greatest reward in her later years was not applause but connection. In interviews, she spoke often about forgiveness, both of others and herself. "I've made mistakes," she said in a 2020 discussion, "but I've learned that grace is what keeps us alive. If you can forgive yourself and forgive the world, you can find peace." Those words became a reflection of her life's journey, a woman who had known heartbreak, addiction, loss, and fame, yet never let any of it turn her bitter. Though she no longer performs as often, each rare appearance feels sacred. When Gladys steps on stage now, her presence carries the weight of history. Fans who grew up with her music weep openly as she sings, not just because of nostalgia, but because her voice still holds that same emotional truth. Even when her tone trembles, the spirit behind it remains unbreakable. Her performances have become less about entertainment and more about reflection, a living testimony to what it means to survive, love, and endure. But time has not been kind to her body. In recent years, she has struggled with fatigue and ongoing health issues, though she remains private about the details. Some close to her say she's learned to accept aging gracefully, no longer trying to outrun it. "The body slows down," she said once, "but the soul, that never gets old." That mindset has allowed her to embrace every wrinkle, every scar, as part of the story she's still telling. Gladys's enduring marriage to William McDowell has also become a cornerstone of her peace. Together, they live a quiet life surrounded by nature, faith, and family, far from the noise of Hollywood. She's often seen attending church services or hosting community events in her small North Carolina town. Neighbors describe her as humble, kind, and surprisingly approachable. The same Gladys Knight who once shared stages with legends like Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder, now content tending her garden and helping her community. Her influence, however, still runs deep in the world of music. Modern artists like Beyoncé, Alicia Keys, and Mary J. Blige often cite her as one of their inspirations. Through her example, she taught generations that soul music isn't just about notes and rhythm. It's about honesty, heart, and storytelling. In an era where fame fades quickly, Gladys Knight's legacy endures because it was built on truth. And perhaps the most touching part of her story is how she continues to honor those she's lost. During her recent concerts, she often dedicates songs to her son, her mother, and the people waiting on the other side. These moments remind everyone watching that her music has never been about fame. It's been her way of staying connected to love, even beyond this life. At 81, Gladys Knight may not be on the stage as often, but her legacy sings louder than ever. Her voice has carried people through heartbreaks, weddings, funerals, and quiet nights of reflection. And now, as she stands in the twilight of her life, the world finally sees her not just as a singer, but as a survivor, a woman who turned tragedy into triumph and pain into poetry.